worship? Why does God insist on it? Have you ever thought about that? If we believe God has our back, if we believe that the Lord is with us, then worship declares the strength. Worship declares the worth. Worship declares the size of your God when you think about Him. All of you remember Muhammad Ali? Before the fights and after the fights, Muhammad Ali would hold up his hands and he'd say, I am the greatest. Try it. I am the greatest. And that would make people so mad. Boy, it'd get them irritated. But the thing was, Muhammad Ali could back it up. In a lot of ways he could. Now, why did he do that? The simple reason is this, and I'm not sure, but I think the hype and the boasting, all that he did was to motivate himself. Was to motivate himself to know that he could do it. So why do we worship God? I mean, think about it. Does the phenomenal, all-powerful creator of the universe, does he spend vast amounts of time to reassure him that he is great? I mean, do you think God has to give himself a pat on the back? I don't think so. Worship is not intended to fill God's ego. Worship is to encourage and to strengthen and to build us up. Worship also expresses a gratitude to God for encouraging, for strengthening, for building us up. Not to mention thanking Him for all the wonderful blessings He gives us. I mean, think about it. Look at what you're wearing. Who provided that? Well, I did. Okay, come on now. Work with me here. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Who provided that? And we're going to go in a little bit further on this by understanding, quite literally understanding everything we have comes from God. I do not believe it was just an accident that when Peter got out of the boat and the storm calmed the disciples, and when Peter got back in the boat and the calms died and the storm died down and the disciples looked at him, I do not believe it was an accident that they said, truly you are the Son of God. Every time we have the courage to get out of the boat, and every time we get out of the boat, and every time we walk on water, we can come through the storms. Every time we do that, our God gets bigger. Did you ever think about that? Every time. So as God acts and grows, guess what? We grow too. Mark, in the book of Mark, he records the walking on water story immediately after Jesus feeds the 5,000. You remember the story of the 5,000? You know, they had leftovers after that was done. And Mark says that after that event, they go out and they're in the storm, and Jesus comes out to them on the water, and Peter does the same thing. Following Jesus calming the storm, and they were wondering at the miracle. Turn over to Mark chapter 6, look at verse 52. Mark 6:52 says this. They had not understood about the loaves, and their hearts were hardened. So all of this was then mixed up with the fact that they had hardened their hearts and they didn't understand the whole miracle of the loaves and fishes. And so when I stop and I worship, I mean, when I'm really worshiping and I reflect on what God has done for me in my life, the first thing that happens is my heart gets soft. I mean, honestly, we come here today, we see our brothers and sisters in Christ. We get encouragement, we visit, we talk, we have Bible class, we sing these really good songs that Jerry leads. How can you not leave this place mad about something? How can you leave this place mad about something? Psychologists speak of a human condition called mindlessness. Let me give you a little test. And how you, if you pass it, and to pass the answers, you've got to answer these questions. Then we will see how you respond. A tree that grows from an acorn is called an? Okay. The vapor that rises from fire is called? The sound a frog makes is called? Croak. Okay. The white of an egg is called? Okay, now if you didn't say yolk, you're about as less mindless than I am. Mindlessness is one of the primary things that keep us from worshiping God. I'll say it again. Mindlessness is one of those things, the primary thing that keep us from worshiping. We live in an age where we seek to eliminate mysteries. We love to solve mysteries and problems. That's why we have caller ID, so we can know who's calling us. We can take blood and figure out the gender of the baby before it's even born. Why? Because we've got to know, because I got to paint that baby's room pink or blue. We have exit polls that tells us who's going to win the election before half the city can go and vote for him. One preacher said this: we destroy the wonder and then we ache for it. The surprise is over. And we have nothing to wait for. Let me tell you something. You cannot kill the wonders of God. He is too big for that. How do your lungs work? What makes your eyes open in the morning? How can a bunch of weeds on the side of a hill turn into a beautiful bank of bluebonnets? Turn over to Job. Open your Bibles to Job and look at. We're going to look at some other questions. You know, Job was sitting there asking, why? Why? And finally, God says, now I'm going to ask you some questions, Job. Look at chapter 38. Look at chapter 38. Look at some of the questions that he asks. Look at verse 6 of chapter 38. On what? Okay, verse 7. While the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy, who shut up the seas behind the doors and when it burst forth from the wounds? Look at verse 12. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edge and shake the wicked off of it? Look at verse 16. Have you ever journeyed to the springs of the sea or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Jump over to chapter 39 now. God has more questions. Do you know when the mountain goat gives birth? And do you watch the doe bear her fawn? Look at verse 10 of chapter 39. Can you hold, I'm sorry, go up to verse 9. Will the wild ox consent to serve you, or will he stay by your manger at night? Can you hold him to the furrow with a harness till he tills the valley behind you? Look at verse 13. The wings of an ostrich flap joyfully, but they cannot compare with the pinions and feathers of a stork. Verse 19, do you give the horse his strength or clothe his neck with a flowing mane? Go to chapter 40. The Lord said to Job, will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who accuses God give answers to him. And Job answered the Lord, I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once and I have no answer, twice, but I will say no more. Then the Lord spoke to Job in the storm and said, brace yourself like a man. I will question you and you will answer me. Will you discredit my justice? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like God's? Can your voice thunder like his? I don't think we know how big God is. And I think as humans we try to humanly put limits on him. And we think, well, if I can't do it, why in the world would God want to? Worship is not just about attending services. Today, people are asking all kinds of different things of worship. They're saying next hour, it's got to be so impactful and so great and so wonderful that I can go home, spend the rest of the week doing nothing because I did my hour at church. Worship's got to be meaningful. Worship's got to reach out to all the generations. Worship's got to sing the new songs so the kids will like it. It's got to sing the old songs so the old people will like it. It's got to have community at just the right time. The sermon's only got to be 25 minutes long because if I don't, the roast will burn. We put so much impact on worship that we've tended forgotten. Well, can you imagine what it would be like when Moses just got out of Egypt? He freed the Israelites. He goes off and he takes them across the Red Sea, leads the children of Israel out of bondage. They're gathered to worship at Mount Sinai for the first time. And someone pipes up and says, I don't like what we're doing here. I want to use the tambourines. I know, let's sing that song that Miriam wrote at the Red Sea. Let's use that in our worship service. Why don't we use that song anymore? Or maybe they told Moses, hey Moses, man, the service is too long. 3 days is just too inconvenient for me. I'm going to go worship with the Hittites. They have a 2-day service. Or someone comes along and says, you know what? Moses, I like it when Aaron preaches. Aaron should be our leader. Our generation needs someone who can relate to us a little bit better. I just got one question for you this morning. Is boredom in worship a matter of the song selection or what is being preached? Or is boredom at worship all about what's wrong with your heart? What does it mean to fear the Lord? It certainly doesn't mean to be afraid that he'll destroy us. Yeah, like there were some lightning bolts being ready to throw at us. It doesn't mean that he is untrustworthy. To worship in spirit and in truth, it is a reverence. It is an awe. It is a healthy, I said healthy on purpose, a healthy recognition of who God is. John 4:18 says, perfect love cast out fear, and every part of worship should declare that my God is real and he is really big. And we worship to magnify that God. We see the wonder of God calming the storm, and we are truly amazed. And they worship and they say, truly, truly, you're the Son of God. In our baby class, I hope we still do it because it's a really great song. We teach our children a song that says, this sings, my God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. The mountains are his and the valleys are his, and the stars are his handiwork too. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. That is a wonderful song for every little kid to learn. Today I say, we all need to learn that song. Because we serve a God who is so big and so mighty that when we put our faith and trust in him and we get out of that boat there's no telling what this church will do. This morning, if you're subject to the invitation, we want to meet you down front. If you want to be baptized, we can take care of that. If you want the prayers of the church, whatever you need, it's today. Please make it known as we stand and as we sing.
You've been to Jesus for the cleansing power. Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His graces? Are you